Yes, Kosam. All right. Good evening, learners. I hope you are well, and I hope the preparations are underway for your Monday paper. Please do take note that there is a link with a number of links to some video clips regarding paper one. These links were made available to your groups. You can find them. Try and make time to watch them so you can reinforce certain things that should be reinforced in terms of your preparation for Monday. Again, guys, please do make sure you remember everything that we spoke about with regards to how to attempt the paper and how you would wish to answer the paper in order to maximize your chances of getting good marks. In today's session, I just want us to look at, I thought we were going to do two poems, but it looks like I might not be able to get to the second one. However, I will see as time goes, and then I'll make a decision as I go along. So I want us to look at a poem, Mutu ke Mutu Kabatu Babang by Jeremy Cronin. Some very much important information that we need to look at is the fact that Mutu ke Mutu Kabatu Babang is a reinstatement of, or the reiteration of, the spirit of Ubuntu. As Africans or South Africans, we have this belief that I am because you are. So a person is a person because of other persons or because of other people. So when we look at this title, we get to understand that we are looking at a narrative type of a narrative type of a poem where the speaker is going to show how life is with the other person. So we sometimes tend to think that we are islands and we can do anything by ourselves. But as we're going to go through this poem, we're going to understand that actually I cannot do anything without the other person. So in this case, we are looking at a context that we are in, and the context in which our characters are found in which they are found rather, is a prison cell. So just as a reminder of what prison looks like, I mean, we may not have a clear picture of what this prison might have looked like in terms of the appearance, but all we know is that a prison one is limiting in nature. It is limiting in a sense that there are certain things that you may not do and certain things that you may do. And one of the things you do not possess in prison is freedom. So we are going to see now the notion of freedom being spoken of within this poem, which gives us an ironic type of a situation, because to start with, these people are not free. They are incarcerated, but within the prison cell, the people have managed, as a society within the prison system, have managed to come up with strategies of communication. Now, if you do remember, yesterday we looked at funeral blues, and one of the things our speaker had commanded to have stopped was the communication. But now, when we flip over now to Mutuke Mutu Kabatu Babang, we realize the importance of communicative practices. And we're going to see the signs that these people have come up with in order to ensure that life in prison is manageable. Now, I want us to start by looking at some things, some important things that we can want to note here. The first thing that I want us to look at is the type and the nature of the poem that we are dealing with. So Motuke Motuka Batwabang is, or we could argue that it is a protest poem. It is incorporating resistance to apartheid with a deep appreciation of how such resistance unites all those involved and affected. So Cronin was an activist against apartheid and was arrested. Thus, we can deduce that this poem is an autobiographical type of a poem. And now, when we look at the tone in this poem, we are able to see that the tone is conversational and matter-of-factly, in contrast to the aggressive interrogation of the warder and falsely placatory humility of the black prisoner. So in this case, the speaker uses a tone that is of communication or conversational, because they are using very well understood diction. So here we need to remember that the tone is mostly and largely conversational. Now, let's look at the title again. So we are looking at Mutuke Mutuka Batubabang. So here, the humanity is created in unity. So we see the ideology of Ubuntu, which also indicates the importance of communication, which is vital for the survival of the human species. If we do not communicate, then it messes up with our survival, because for me to go through life and go through it effectively, I need to be able to communicate. I cannot just be quiet and not be able to speak. I mean, you can get frustrated over the fact that someone is not communicating. When we look at how we communicate via WhatsApp and all the socials, you get very, very moved when someone blue ticks you. So this is how vital it is that communication must take place. Now, again, let's look at the setting. Where are we? We are in the prison, and a prisoner holds a mirror out of a little window in the prison door as he wants to see the corridor outside his cell, as he wants to communicate with another prisoner. So again, we are right inside of the prison cell, And there is that need, because it's part of a human experience, to commune and to communicate with others. So we see a prisoner holding a mirror out of his little window. And then what is this mirror used as or used for? The mirror is used for communicative purposes. So the mirror serves the purpose of a communication tool. So these people are not just looking at a mirror as something very small, but they're looking at a mirror as something with a huge responsibility, and a responsibility to communicate. Now, let's get to the line on line interpretation, or analysis rather, sorry, of this poem. So the first line says, by holding my mirror out the window I see. Now I want you to look at the use of the personal pronoun here. It is my mirror. So it is as if the speaker has ownership. He has a sense of ownership. He owns this tool with which to communicate. So without this tool, he cannot see outside his window. Now, remember, this person is locked up behind bars, and he is constricted, he is restricted, his movement is controlled and is restricted, he is without the freedom to move. So the only way he could get out of his prison cell is through his imagination and through the mirror he uses. So he says, by holding my mirror out the window, I see clear to the end of the passage. So now we get to see the whole purpose for him holding his mirror out the window. He's holding it so that he could see clear to the end of the passage. Clearly, he is expecting to see something right around the passage. So, as he holds his mirror out, he is able to see clear to the end of the passage. And then in the third line, he says, there's a person down there. Now, I want us to look at the speaker's diction here. He starts off saying that he's holding out his mirror out of the window. That's the first thing. And then he is able to see clear at the end of the passage. Now, when you look at the words end of the passage, they connote that the passage might be a bit long. It might be a bit stretched out. So the only way he could see right up to the end, it is through the mirror. And then he is able to see a person down there. Now, there are two things in this line. The first thing that we need to take note of is his use of the words, there's a person. So he sees a person first before he could see a prisoner. Amanda, please turn off your camera. So he sees a person and not a prisoner. Now, this also gives us an indication that I am a human being first before the mistakes that I make. So he is now bringing the aspect of the honor and respect of a person. Although this person is without a name, he honors them by referring to them as a person. The second phrase that we need to look at is the phrase down there. This phrase reinforces the distance between the speaker and the person he is able to see. So that already gives us an indication of the fact that there is a humongous distance between these characters in the prison. So they are not only incarcerated, but they might not be allowed to have close proximity one with another. So hence he sees this person down there. So the down there speaks of the distance, reinforces the idea of the distance between the speaker as well as this person he is able to see. And then in the fourth line, he says, now, this person I'm seeing down there is a prisoner polishing a handle. Now, only now in the fourth line, he refers to this person as a prisoner. And this person is polishing a door handle. Now, let's look at the phrase a door handle. Now, a handle of a door is used to open. But now, in this case, we are looking at a prison cell. So we have a rather ironic situation here, because while there are images of freedom, such as a door handle, I would not be able to come in and out of any building without making use of of the door handle, and it closes. So there is an irony here, because this man is only close to an exit point, which is the door, but all he could be able to do is not to open this door. It is not to use the handle to open the door, but it is just to polish the door. So talk about being right in front of the promise and not be able to experience it. So this is the kind of a situation the prisoner is finding himself in. He is able to just polish a door handle. And then in the mirror, I see him see my face in the mirror. So now they are able to see one another. So the only way they could start with their communicative practices, where they use hand gestures, or the science of use of hand gestures, it is that they need to establish seeing one another on this particular mirror. It's a very small tool, but it is extremely big. So it is huge, because we are able to do so many things with this little thing, well, which the slave master or the warder, to use the correct word, may not be able to understand what we are trying to say. So in the mirror, I see him see my face in the mirror. And then I see the fingertips of his free hand. Now, again, there's an irony here. His hand is the only part of his body that is free, yet his body is not free. So only the fingertips of his free hand. Now, please take note, at this juncture of the poem, his fingertips of his hand are called fingertips of his free hand. And these fingertips of his free hand are bunched together, as if to make an object the size of a badge, which travels up to the forehead, the place of an imaginary cap. So as they see one another in the mirror, the other one begins then to bunch together the fingertip of his free hand, and he makes an object the size of a badge, which travels up. So he takes the size of a badge, he puts it right up to his forehead, which is a place of an imaginary cap. So the one holding a mirror already understands that hand gesture. So he's able to understand that this means a warder. Now, let's be very careful of the words which are in parentheses, or words in brackets, they are translations. Now, I wanted to note this. There are two poems that which use rather this particular technique. It is Somewhere I Have Never Traveled Gladly Beyond, where certain words which are written in brackets, those are the speaker's reflections in that poem. But in Mutuki Mutuka Batubabang, what is in the parentheses or brackets is the translation of either what is spoken verbally or what is spoken using hand gestures. So already the one holding a mirror already knows what the other one is saying. Oh, it is a warder. So he's giving him a signal that a warder is around here. And then two fingers are extended in a V and wiggle like two antennae. Now let's look at the figure of speech here. We have a simile here. So the extended two fingers of the one holding, of this other character are compared to a wiggle of a two antennae. An antennae is another thing that we need for communicative purposes. For me to get signal to watch television and see clearly, I need an antenna. For me to get the right signal for a particular radio station, for me to hear it very clearly without any disruptions or disconnections, I need an antenna. So the two hands are also a part of the communicative practices. Now, the wiggling of the two hands like two antennae, what does it mean? It means he is being watched. So this person is telling the other that, hey, you are being watched. A finger of his free hand makes a watch hand's arc on the wrist of his polishing arm without disrupting the slow rhythm of his work. I want us to look at this slow rhythm. This man is supposed to work in prison. There are particular times in which you are supposed to work. There is a time frame in which a particular activity needs to be done. But now, this person is working very slow. He's got a very slow rhythm of his work. This already demonstrates that he is in defiance. He defies the law. He defies what the system in the prison is demanding. It's demanding to be respected. But this one decides, I am not going to do as they want me to do. I am going to work, of course, but I'm going to maintain a very slow rhythm to my work. And what does that also mean? It means later, maybe later we can speak. And then out of the blue, after the signaling of this later, maybe later we can speak, a voice comes out and says, hey, wat maak jy daar? Already we've got an Afrikaans here, language coming through. Remember, the poem is a protest poem that deals with the resistance of the apartheid or the resistance to apartheid. So already the coming through of this particular language now brings into our attention the slave driver here, the Afrikaner, and the prison warder is an Afrikaner. So these were the controlling system. So the language is associated to oppression. So now the oppressor, quote unquote, in a person of a warder, is asking a simple question. But we can also pick up that he is using an authoritative tone, because Afrikaans, by its nature, it's one of those authoritative languages. It's like isiZulu. It demands to be listened to. It demands attention. So once you say "Vad mag jy daar," he demands an answer. So this is a voice that is coming from around the corner. And then there's a response, no. But now, this is not a question that requires a yes or no. So already by way of the prisoner's response, you're able to pick up the sense of defiance again, because it was not a yes or no question. It's that type of a question. What are you doing there? You're supposed to say, I am polishing, boss. He says no. And then he says, just polishing, boss. Now, the use of the word just already gives the sense that the prisoner doesn't put the warder in any place. Of course, he's the man of authority by virtue of the work he is employed to do. But according to the prisoner, he's just a boss. I mean, let's look at how boss is written. So boss again is an Afrikaans word for boss. But now we usually capitalize the B. But in this case, the B is with a lowercase. That is also bringing the issue of defiance. So the warder is not brought in any place of preeminence or prominence, rather. He is just a bus with a smaller B. He's just a bus. So he says, no, just polishing bus. He turns his back to me. And then he says, now watch. His free hand, again, the irony, the targetive one. Now, his hand is with a name now. At first, it's been his free hand, but now his free hand is called the targetive one. So it has a name. So it is the hand that is the voice that allows the communication to take place through the mirror. And then this hand began to slip quietly behind. Why is it slipping his hand quietly behind? That sign means strength, brother, it says. In my mirror. So as he's looking in his mirror, seeing the other prisoner slipping quietly behind his hand, he is able to see a black fist. Why is he supposed to hide this black fist and not show it in front of the warder? It is because a black fist is symbolic of freedom in terms of the Africans. So once he uses that fist and the warder would see him do that, it would cause problems for him, because around the time of apartheid, you were not allowed to use this because it connotes black power. It connotes the black consciousness movement. It connotes black is beautiful. It connotes united we stand as black people. So the system of apartheid could not deal with such symbolism, because it was rather something that was not appreciated. So the black prisoners here were separated from white prisoners, so you have to know that, who had more privileges than them. But this now is irrelevant to the black prisoner who commiserates with the white prisoner rather than feeling resentment, anger towards him. So the black fist symbolizes that their struggles transcends race and that they are brothers in their opposition to the injustices of apartheid. So here we are looking at the other white prisoners who might be in prison but who are more privileged. They too would use the fist together with the black prisoners because it meant brotherhood. It meant that we are in this together. So in this context, we don't have the white person here. This was just an additional information. But a black brother to another was saying strength, brother, by using a symbol of a black fist. So this is the poem Mutu, Kimutu, Kabatu, Baba. All right, let's try, and I think I won't go to the questions. Let's immediately go to, before our time is up, let's move to the other poem, A Hard Frost. One of the most challenging poems, I need to say. Very challenging poems, but yet very beautiful poems as well. It's a very beautiful poem. You need to understand what Cecil Day Lewis was trying to do here. Now, let's look at the type and form of the poem. Remember, with Motuke Motu, we said that poem is a protest poem. It is it has a conversational tone, therefore it makes the poem a narrative. That is Motuke Motu Kabatu Baba. So a hard frost then, in other words, is another form of a poem. So it is a free verse. It has 2 stanzas of 9 lines and 10 lines, no rhyme scheme, and Jama creates smooth flow as if the poet is thinking aloud. Now we're going to look at what the first stanza is doing as well as the second one. So the first stanza describes the scene, while the second stanza comments on it and exposes the truth of the first. Now, let's look at the imagery here. So the imagery here is a contrast between snow and frost. So we're going to look at a number of words that create a particular image in our minds as we read. And then when we look at the theme, the one glaring theme is that of appearance versus reality. Now, this tells us that not everything is as it looks. All right, let's look at the title here. So when temperatures become very low and anything exposed to the night air gets a coating of ice crystal, beautiful but damages plants. So a hard frost, or a frost rather, takes place when the low temperatures, when temperatures rather become very low. And as they do that, the frost begins to come onto the plants. One thing about the frost, when you look at your plants heavy with frost, they look very beautiful because they have that snowy kind of an appearance. But at the same time, the frost is not good for the plants because it is going to kill the plants. So now, let's look at the first stanza. Or a hard frost, rather, we looked at the frost. Now, this frost is hard. Now, the word hard connotes the fact that it is without mercy. So we are looking at a frost that is not coming to make things look beautiful, but mercilessly is going to create some chaotic type of a situation. It's going to create what looks to be good, yet it is not. But at the same time, it is not going to work for the good of the plants, but rather is going to create a problem there. Now, a frost came in the night and stole my world. Now, I wanted to look at the first line and identify the tone here. The tone of the speaker in the first line is very accusatory. It's as if he is accusing the frost for coming and stealing my world. Now, there are a few words here that I need us to look at. I want us to look at the word night. I mean, in the night, so many things which are mysterious takes place. So here, there is a connotation of the mystery that comes with the night. And this mystery that comes with night is the frost that comes. And it comes as a thief in the night, and it steals my world. And what is this world? It is everything as the speaker has known it. So I woke up in the morning and realized that my world has been changed. So the word's appearance has been radically altered by the layer of the frost, which makes it appear spring-like. So I woke up and seeing that the world as I known it has radically been altered. And then he says, as a frost came in the night and stole my world, it left this changeling. Now, I want us to look at the word changeling. We see that in that line we have a metaphor. So a changeling is the brilliant frosty scene as described as a changeling. Now, also a changeling is known as a little baby that fairies would leave when they would take the real baby. So it left a baby that looks like a baby, but yet they are not the real baby. So what is it that we are getting from this? We are getting that a frost has left that which is not real and taken away that which is real. So here it left a precocious image of spring. Now let's look at the word precocious. If something is precocious, it is not long lasting. It is now an image of the flowers that will grow in spring. So it has given us a precocious image of spring. It is not spring, but the frost looks like spring has just arrived. And this image of spring was too brilliant to be true. It was too beautiful. Now, white lilac on the window pane, each grass blade furred like a catkin, may drift loading the hedge. The elms behind the house are elms no longer, but blossomers in crystal, stems of the mist that hangs yet in the valley below. Then he says, amorphous as the blind tissue whence creation formed. Now, let's look at some things here. White lilac on the window pane, each grass blade furred like a catkin. We have a simile there. Something is compared to a catkin. May drift loading the hedge. The elms behind the house are elms no longer. So what I saw the previous night is no longer what I see now. But now it is blossomers and crystal stems. Now the stems of the mist that hangs yet in the valley below, and it says amorphous as the blind tissue whence creation is formed. The sun looks out. Now there's a personification here. So in the first stanza, we see how the frost has just dropped on the plants. Everything looks white. It looks like white lilacs. The may drifts, the grass blades are compared to like a furred, like a fur. I want a fur when you're wearing a fur coat. When you look at the fur is clean, it's beautiful, it's white. So the grass blade will look like furred like catkins. So the May drifts were loading, the hedge, the elms. So all of these things looked white. But the true test is going to come in line 10 when the sun decides to look out. We know that the sun has no eyes. So if it looks out, it is as if it has eyes. So it begins to rise. And as it rises, we know everything that is ice is going to melt. So as the sun looks out, the fields begin to blaze with diamonds. That's the first reaction of the frost, because when the sun looks out, the sun rays are going to beam and they are going to reflect on the ice. And the ice is going to blaze with diamonds. It's going to be like diamonds blazing. And he says in line 11, all of this that we see is nothing but mockery spring. It is not the real spring. It is a mockery spring to land this bridal gear. Now, again, the bridal gear, a metaphoric expression. So we are looking at a bride that looks very beautiful with their bridal gear. So he now brings in the bride into this to say, at one moment, the bride looks beautiful. I've never seen an ugly bride. So in this case, he's comparing a bridal gear to what the earth is looking like. It's all white with the frost. It looks like it has put on the bridal gear. But for how long? For a few hours. So it is lended to the bridal gear for a few hours to a raw country maid, then leave her all disconsolate with old fairings of aconite and snowdrop. And then he says, no, not here. Amid this flounce and filigree of death. Now, in line 15, it says, no, not here. 14, it says, not here. This frost has better have its another place to play on, but not here. Because in the midst of this flounce and the filigree, I want us to look at something very interesting here. Flounce means impatient movement, and it has a connotation of showing off. So in the midst of this flounce, what we see, and then filigree is what we call a delicate ornament or ornamental metalwork. In the midst of this flounce and filigree of death is the real transformation seen in progress. So in other words, behind what we see is the true transformation. What we see is nothing but a facade. It's a mask. It is not real. It appears to be real, but it is not. But the real work is taking place behind what we see. So behind or amid this flounce and filigree of death is the real transformation seen in progress. And then it says, but deep below, where frost, worrying the stiff clods, unclenches their grip on the seed and lets our future breathe. Very wonderful closing line here. He says now, as the sun is looking out, remember we said as the sun looks out, okay, we've got 14 minutes left. I'm not going to go through the questions today. I'm just going to leave it as soon as I'm done. I'm going to wrap up, and then you'll have to do the questions on your own, and you can come back to me so we could check whether you have answered them correctly. I'm going to send these again to the group immediately after this session. So as the sun begins to look up, we said the ice is going to melt. So while the ice might have posed a threat to nature by the fact that it is messing up with the plants, Day Lewis says, no, let's look at it in another way. As the sun melts the ice turns into water, and the water sips right under the ground. And under the ground lies a number of seeds which could not germinate because it was winter. So these seeds were held hostage. There were clods, there were stiff clods clenching their grip on the seed. But as these clods, amagabete in isiZulu, as these clods got the water, they began to unclench their grip because now they're becoming wet. They are loosening up their grip on the seed, and they allow the seed to breathe. I love those words. I mean, they unclench their grip on the seed and let our future breathe, because each and every seed has the future within it. So as the clods received the water, they let loose the seed, and the seed, being a possessor of our future, began to breathe, and it started to germinate and give us a fresh start. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is a hard frost as we have looked at it. Now, I want us to look at the tone here. In lines 1 to 3, the tone used by the speaker is that of distrust. He doesn't trust the snow, the frost, because it has come as a thief. No one trusts a thief. It is also dismissive. In lines 10 to 14, the tone is strongly and negatively critical. It is again accusatory. It is disparaging. It is indulgent, because the frost has turned the countryside into a bride dressed in white, but just for a short while. Then it will take it all away by melting, leaving only the plants which flowers in winter, the aconites and snowdrops. So the exclamation marks there, which are used, are to emphasize the tone. And then in lines 16 and 17, we have a much lively tone here. And in the 19th line, the tone is outright satisfactory. So the speaker is satisfied by how things are turning out, especially with the last few words. It says, our future breathe. He's hopeful at this point. He is satisfied that there is a future ahead of us, and this future is going to breathe. So now the entire poem is an extended metaphor. Now, the poet is using the word frost as a metaphor, comparing the beautiful ice crystals to the superficial things of this world, which may be attractive and seem like a promise of something good, but which prove to have no lasting value. So true progress and value is often seen and unglamorous and not appreciated by many. So this is in total what Cecil Day Lewis is trying to give us in terms of true life, that sometimes life looks very rosy, it looks white, it looks amazing, and yet it isn't. Behind what we see is the true nature of life, and that's where the transformation is taking place. Thank you again for joining us tonight. I hope you will be able to spend time. If you didn't get everything, you can still get the recording on YouTube. So you could again and again listen and go through your poem and be able to further get clarity as it regards to what we were looking into today. So, gents and ladies, we are going to meet on Monday. On Monday, I am going to meet only the picture of Dorian Gray, Leonard. We're going to deal with Dorian Gray on Monday. And then on Wednesday, we are going to deal with the life of Pi Leonard. And then on Thursday, we are going to deal with the Hamlet Leonard. And then the other Monday, we're going to deal with the Othello Leonard. And then on Wednesday, we're going to finalize with the Crucible Leonard. So please, guys, make sure you are on time, because again, I need to remind you, under normal circumstances, these sessions are paid for. They are paid for, and I've made them available for free. Please respect the fact that I am making time to offer these sessions for free. So the least you could do is to be on time. You know the days on which the meetings are held. I have spoken to you in terms of slotting these into your study timetable, so that you know that on these days, this time, it is my English study period. But I see many of you are still not doing what you're supposed to do. So learners, please, let's honor my time. So when we meet on Monday, I truly expect you guys to be here on time. Again, our load shedding schedules will determine what time are we going to meet. So please do check them out over the weekend. I'm going to do the same. And if there are any changes, I'll make the announcement in our WhatsApp group. Thank you so much, and do take care, and good evening to all of you.